Welcome to the Pink Dress Effect podcast with Shannon
and Kim.
Today we're going to talk about faith. And this subject matter I think is really important to you and I.
Yeah.
And why faith is important to Kim and I, and kind of how it's shaped us, really.
No,
and maybe even we
foundation.
Right, and kind of maybe we can go back to the beginning of how maybe in our own lives. I mean, I don't know. How did your growing up? How was your life with that?
I can tell you in my church, we didn't have like dedication.
Was it like a
that
religion, like necessarily?
It was Church of God in Christ.
Okay.
Disciples of Christ was the denomination. I was 7 years old. I remember this clearly. I might have been 6. I remember myself as 7, but I could have been 6. But I remember being in church, and you would walk up if you wanted to be baptized.
Okay.
And I remember the feeling of God calling me to the church. I was a child. So people think that children don't know enough to be called. But I remember the feeling of the desire to get up and go to the front of the church to say that I wanted to be baptized. And back then it was like I think it was the Albemarle sound, and you went out to the sound and they baptized you and out, but I remember the feeling of that.
Of being baptized.
Of being baptized.
Wow.
And the call of the feeling of being called to go and get baptized. And I always said that I think God knew I was going to need him very early in life. You're going to need a close walk with me. And so, but I remember that feeling.
That's funny. Well, I grew up Catholic. So Catholicism is done very different than that. So your parents have you baptized, which in a lot of denominations, I think it's more like, what is it, a christening? It's more like a dedication.
A dedication, yeah.
But baptized in the same way that you described, but it's as a baby, right?
Yeah.
And then as you grow and kind of, I always attest to confirmation is similar to baptism when you get older in other denominations, where you you're confirming your faith.
Yes.
And then you do that. I did that in high school. But it wasn't like really a decision. I think it's like, it's just time.
It's time.
It's time. You know what I mean? So there's sacraments you go through. And so I made that. And then, church was good and we had a lot of fun in church. But I think like my faith really didn't get to realize how important it was to me, because we were always in the church.
Yeah.
Probably till I was in the military, and I really held on to it when some tough challenges have happened, right? A lot of people hold on to their faith when that happens. And I think that's really when I started on my journey. And a lot of times we think that we have to stay in the same denomination that our parents, and there's
That's right. There's a lot of pressure for
and
that.
a guilt, and there's some guilt. And I know I had guilt. That they always talk about Catholic guilt, right? And I didn't marry a Catholic. We got married in the Catholic church, but we couldn't do some of the sacraments because he wasn't Catholic. But that never bothered me, because to me, I want to be equally yoked, but to me, it doesn't matter what religion, because that's man-made. Right. So do you have a faith? Do you have a relationship, right? But anyway, my faith is, oh my goodness, I can't imagine not having faith.
Yeah, it's the foundation of everything that I am.
Good and bad, right?
Yeah,
like, it's like we talked about in previous, I'm out of work right now, and my faith, and I talked about a song, let go, let God, let and I'm feeling that need of not controlling the outcome, because if my faith tells me that I am going to get a job and I'm going to get a better job, and it's going to be the right job.
Yeah.
And I know that because of my faith. So not saying I don't stress sometimes, but my faith makes it easier.
It does. It definitely makes it easier. And I think about, the kind of defining moment for me with my faith. I'd always had strong faith, always. I felt like, me and God were besties. I had a lot of grace in my life, a lot of favor in my life. And I really felt, I always felt that. But I don't know, when I went through my time of being sick, that is when my faith deepened.
That's when your faith.
Because I don't know what I thought would happen when I was working a job. It was a contract job. It ended. I was really sick. And I knew God was telling me to not work. I knew it.
Okay.
And I knew that I was at a place where I couldn't work. I don't know if I thought money was. I don't know if I thought money was going to rain from the sky. I don't know what I thought was going to happen.
But what made you? What made you hold on to not stopping working? Was it the fact that you did need the money for your family?
Yes. Like, how are we going to survive without my income? And so this is faith. This is completely stepping out on faith because I really didn't know how that was going to happen. But I knew what I felt God was telling me to do. And so after we started the financial repercussions of me not working, that's why I said, I don't know what I thought. God's going to come down here and just like, I'm going to win the lottery. Something's going to happen. We're going to get, that is not what happened. You know, I did not get a ton of money, but what I did get, I realized, and I was in a funk too. And I remember sitting in church and I felt like that devil was sitting on my shoulder, stabbing me with a pitchfork because I was so angry with God. I was just angry with God.
Because you were sick.
Because I was sick and I couldn't work. And I felt like, God, you told me not to work and I'm not working and we don't have any money and it's Christmas time.
Yeah,
and
it's a real thing.
It was really, really, really tough. And, you know, I was watching It's a Wonderful Life, which I saw like a million times in my life. And I was like, I'm freaking George. Like, I felt like George did all the right things. He did everything right, he was a good, responsible son and, you know, did all the right things. And here he is at Christmas time and the bank's about to, you know, go, all the money's gone. And, you know, he just was done.
Like he couldn't catch a break.
He could not catch a break.
And it happens, right?
And it happens. But you see that story, if you know this story, you know, in the end, everything works out and he's renewed his faith. Clarence comes and, you know, he's an angel and all this stuff. But what I took from that was that's where I was. I really had a sense of, you know, I've done all the things, you know, I've earned all of this. So I've done all the right things. Good things should happen to me. But really, it's about your faith.
It's about your faith.
And he had to rely on his faith. I have to rely on my faith. And that was what turned the corner for me. And then I began, you know, researching stuff about my health. And I came upon the GAPS diet, which I believe was God sent to me. And it was very healing for me. And ultimately, I was able to go back to work. But that's when my faith began to deepen. And then at the end of that, my faith had already deepened and I kind of relied tremendously on God at that point and really felt that he would carry me through. But this was probably about 3 months before I started working again. My mom had invited me to another women's conference at the church and I'd gone and I didn't even want to go. They told everybody to wear color. You know, everybody got to wear the same color. And whatever color it was that year, it might have been yellow, blue, I don't know. But I didn't have a dress, whatever color it was. I was like, I'm wearing whatever I've got. I don't have any money to buy a dress. I'm going.
Because this is when you were sick.
I was getting better. I was healing.
So you didn't have the money to
but
go
I didn't
buy
have
a new
job.
dress.
Right. I didn't have the money for a new dress. I'm like, I'm just going. But it turned out to be a real blessing because the pastor who preached that day, I still remember the title was called like Eat the Cake. And it was from like Eat the Cake anime from like the Tina Turner movie.
Oh, right. Yep.
But it really was about your faith. And when you say that you are going to surrender to God and put your faith and your trust in God, don't keep going back and forth.
Right.
Like, okay,
right.
I believe you this day. I believe you. I don't know. No, you need to eat the cake and fully invest that you are surrendering to God and you are trusting that he will provide for you. And that was the day that I really surrendered. And from that point forward.
Oh, that gives me the chills.
Yeah.
Like,
I trust God implicitly now and I don't waver back and forth. When God tells me to do something, I do it, whether I want to do it or not. And there are complete times, I know that sounds crazy when people say, well, God told me to do such and such. But I really do believe that because there are absolute times in my life I've taken on different tasks. I didn't want to do them. But I felt inside that God was telling me to do it and I did it anyway. And so I've always trusted that ever since then.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And oftentimes, right, your faith, it's derived from a bad time, a tough time, like in your case. And mine, I think when I was going through my divorce and at the same time, shortly thereafter, lost my job.
Yeah, it piles on, tends to pile on.
Oh
all
my
at one
gosh.
time.
And when I lost my job, like it was not a good fit at all. But here I am, single mom, like, oh my goodness. And it was hard. And I actually found a book that I wrote scriptures in. And I won't get rid of it because it's just a reminder of that time of my life. But it some ways feels the way my life feels today.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people active in your life. You feel alone sometimes. You're not contributing, all those things, but it always comes out to the greater good, I do believe. It just, you have to be there. But my faith is strong too. And it doesn't waver as far as my strength in him.
Yes.
It wavers sometimes, I think, when I get in my humanness.
Yes. Well, we're all human.
Yeah. When I, where you start
Well,
and
you can question.
and you
sometimes.
question.
Yeah,
When I didn't
yeah,
get this, it was a couple jobs ago. Because in our previous episodes, we've talked about I'm currently unemployed and have not gotten a job yet.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, I cried. And I was on the phone with my sister. I'm like, is there really a God? Is there really a God?
Yeah.
I'm like, why? Like, and then, and then my sister's like, oh my gosh, yes. And I'm like, well, I know that, but I'm just in a moment right now. And then I felt guilty for even questioning it because it was like, well, I know there's a God because I'm alive and I'm healthy and I have a house and I have a car and my son's okay and my parents are okay. And there's a lot of really bad things happening in the world and it hasn't affected me directly. And so really, I have so much to be grateful for.
And it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. Like when I had that little devil sitting on me with the pitchfork and I'm in church just feeling all sorts of angry, that it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to be angry with God sometimes because you're a human being on this earth and sometimes it sucks.
It sucks. Yeah.
It sucks. It's just hard.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And then, but then through your faith, things do start to work out. And you've talked about you're in a job that you are great at and love and are doing.
And been really successful.
And respected in the community and all those things. And that's kind of what happened to me as well. And I know that will happen again, but it's just, it's hard sometimes. And then I think that sometimes people focus on faith. They talk about religion, but religion's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
It's really about trusting, hoping, and having like a purpose, I think.
Yes.
Like, right? What purpose is religion? I mean, to me, it's not the
because,
same.
religion can be used for, however people determine to, use it and use it for their own will, for their own purpose. And you've got to remember that, I absolutely believe in people being called to be, pastors and be called to the faith, but they're still people. And people, human beings, bring their stuff to the table. You have to have your own personal relationship with God. And that is how I, determine. So I do believe in, organized religion. And I think there's a definite place for that. But I also understand and respect people who don't. And, they don't go to church necessarily, but they still have a relationship with God. I think that's entirely possible to happen.
Because it's personal. And some people don't like going to church.
Yeah.
And some people have been hurt by the church.
Yes.
And so they get a little jaded and they're like, I'm not going to put myself out there anymore. But I still have my faith.
Yes. Have my faith.
Which is the most important. And I know we shared some of our, a couple personal stories.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's important to have faith?
I think, it is the foundation. I don't know how people make it in the world without faith in something. I don't know how I would have gotten through hard times. I also have seen God show up in my life in so many miraculous little ways. And then passing that tradition on to my children. And there's so many blessings I've had in life that I know were the result of prayer. When we first moved, our first house, we were living in Alexandria, Virginia, 20 plus years ago. The cost of living there, I don't know what it is now, but it was horrible then. I was like, I didn't know how we would ever afford a home. And my oldest daughter then was talking about wanting a house with a big backyard. And I remember that sad feeling of being like, I don't know how we're ever gonna afford a house. And I told her, I was like, you're gonna have to pray for it, babe. You're gonna have to pray for it and ask God for it. We moved, it was less than a year later, we moved to North Carolina. And I was just like, well, I'm just gonna start looking for a house. My dad had passed away and had left, a small amount of money for a down payment. but my mom had that, and my dad had left instructions that I was not to have the money until we were in a position to be able to handle it.
Oh, that's great.
So, but we had, I didn't even have a job. I had a part-time job.
Wow.
My
and
husband,
you knew he left the money?
I knew he had left money. I knew that, I could go to my mom and say, okay, I needed such and such amount of money. I didn't know how much, but there was some. And so I just started looking. And at the time, and our credit wasn't good, I had gotten some more money after my dad died. So I'd paid down some debt. So we were rebuilding credit. So I knew all those things to be true, but I said, well, I can't stay here with my mama. Because my whole family, we'd come to North Carolina. I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So, and we had previously when we moved to Virginia.
So were you living with them at this point? No.
I was living with her. My whole family had moved down. I had moved, when I first moved to Virginia, we lived with my mom. Stayed there for, I think, almost 2 years.
Wow.
Moved into an apartment, and then was there for a year. And after that year, came to North Carolina. My mom had already come down, moved in with my mom. And that's when I said, we can't do this for long. And I was like, God, look, we can't do this. I'm telling you, within 30 days, I went to a local realtor, and it was a blessing. He walked me through looking at all the houses. It was a brand new house, big, huge backyard.
Yes, that yard is massive.
And
front yard.
And front yard. And the builder, it was after some time the economy was bad, but he was doing that. You could do a lease option. And so we did a lease option on the house. We were able to buy the house. It was everything back then. I don't even know if they still do lease options now, but you could claim everything except for, I think, the taxes on the house. And then you kind of rebuild your credit, and then then we bought the house, outright. But she prayed for that house. That wasn't me who got that house, because my faith was still like, I don't know how we're going to make this happen.
That's so awesome.
But she prayed for it. And I've seen God in so many ways show up in my life. Mm-hmm. Sky, our miniature schnauzer we had, she put that little money jar collecting money. I'm like, Sky, I don't know. And a relative just gave us a miniature schnauzer. The conditions were the dog had to be hyperallergenic and not shed. And it couldn't cost a lot of money. So she's saving her money in a little jar. And a relative gave us the dog that was hyperallergenic, did not shed. And that dog ended up being such a blessing to her and to me. I mean, Sammy was my dog.
I was going to say that was your baby.
That was my baby. But yeah, just so many ways that God has shown up in my life. So I don't know how people move through the world without seeing God in everything.
Well, and it's funny how you say that, because when I lost my job this time, shortly thereafter, I had to put $2,000 in my car, and then my brakes went. And
my neighbor, were going through it there for a minute.
Yeah, and my neighbor mentioned to her coworker who loves to do that stuff, and he's like, "Let me come over and do it." And I'm like, "I don't know this guy at all. I only know of him. His name is Alex, and all I know of him is that he's a great coworker. That is all I know."
Yeah.
And anyway, he came over. He came over and looked at it in the pouring rain, told me what to get. I got them. He came over, changed them in the pouring rain, and wouldn't take a dime.
Yeah.
So I'm like, once I get this new job, I'm going to send him a gift card for him and his wife to go to dinner on me. And you said, Shannon, that's God. Yes. That's God showing up in your life in people. Mm-hmm. And so I try to look at that sometimes, when you're going through, any day. I mean, you could be in the drive-thru and someone pays for your coffee or your tea or whatever, your food.
And you never know how God, and the incident you told with my mom, and don't block your blessings when people come into your life. When you're going through a hard time and people come to your life, do not let your pride keep you from your blessings. God is going to use people. He is not coming down here in his white robes, walking around here. He's going to use his people to bless you. Yep. And that's how you will make it through. Yep. So and use it for all the little things.
All the little things.
That's one of the things I learned too. Don't just pray when it's some big, huge calamity in your life. Pray all the time about just little things. And we're telling a lot of stories, but I'm going to tell one more. Well, maybe not, maybe more. But this one happened recently. I told you about it.
Yeah.
I was riding around in my car on a flat tire, riding all around everywhere.
Oh, this is a great story.
My car, it was shaking. It was doing some stuff, but it's an old car. And I was like, well, it's just something else wrong with this car.
Yeah.
But I went to see my daughter who was sick to take her some medicine.
Yeah.
The cable guy was in the driveway. He said, you got a flat tire? I was like, oh, that's what's wrong with my car. So it was really flat, like really flat.
You didn't even know when you were driving?
No, I knew something was wrong. I knew it wasn't driving right. I didn't know that.
You're so crazy.
So then I said, I told Sky, I said, well, Sky, I only put air in my tire once in my whole life. I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to this gas station. Somebody will help me. So I went to the gas station. I called a friend who I was meeting later on that night. I'm telling her this whole story. She's like, you don't know how to put air in your tire? I'm meeting you at the gas station. She comes to the gas station. Someone she knows is coming out of the gas station. She recruits them to put air in the tire. Well, the thing happens to be broke. But
the air
pump thing is broken. But just so happens he has a pump in his car. So he comes, pumps up my whole thing, pumps it up, and then says, ride it forward. Let me see if you got a nail in the tire. Sure enough, there's a screw in there. Well, here comes this guy walking out the gas station. Oh, I've got a kit in my car.
So it's a separate guy.
This different guy.
Oh my goodness.
I've got a kit in my car. We're like, you got a kit in your car to get the nail out of the tire? He's like, yeah. He's like, I own a trucking company. I have a kit. He gets that kit out of his car, changes, gets the nail out of there, does whatever he needs to do. I didn't have to pay not 1 cent. I left out of there with my tire completely fixed. And I didn't have a clue how I was even going to put air in the tire. I didn't even know how to work the machine.
If that wasn't God.
That was God. And it was a little thing. It wasn't a big major thing.
Yeah, but that might have cost like a lot,
But it was having faith and trusting in even the small things. Ask God for whatever it is that you need and trust that he will deliver.
And so I would need my job.
That's right.
It's coming. It's
coming, Shannon. Sometimes
know.
he puts it's on God's timing. That's what you have to remember.
Well, I had that big interview this week, another one. So that'll be good, I think.
But it helps to ground you. Having your faith grounds you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because without it, what's the point?
Yeah, and you can just get caught up in your fear.
It's real, right?
Yeah. When you're living on this earth, there's a lot of things to be afraid of. But when you have faith, you're like, well, I'm going to be taken care of no matter what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good
And you
or
remind
bad.
me, during this time, you were there last time I lost a job.
Mm-hmm.
But, I know it's going to happen, but I've had a couple days. It gets scary.
Normal. Yeah.
When your savings account is going down and, it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah. But it's okay. It's okay to have, it's okay to experience the fear. I always say, look, it's okay to feel whatever emotion you need to feel. And this is new to me within the last year or so, really learning to kind of settle in and embrace whatever emotion I'm feeling. It's just not okay to stay there.
Right.
So you have to feel it, work through it. And that's when I say, okay, God, sometimes I even feel like, look, I've been in the shower crying the blues. I've just been, wailing at God. And I felt I've always, sometimes I'll just tell myself, like, God's like, okay, Kim, stop with the temper tantrum. Get yourself together. It's gonna be okay. But I still needed that moment. But I always do. Tears are healing. I think it's okay to cry. I think it's okay to wail and express all of your grief. But to trust that God will deliver in the end.
And I think the big thing too, like you said, is to feel it. Because sometimes we get ourselves busy doing whatever and you don't feel it.
You can't hear God.
And then
when you get too busy.
You get too busy.
Yeah.
So,
And trusting your intuition. For me, my intuition is God speaking to me. And the times when I have gone against
I know, right?
what I knew God was telling me to do, you got to pay the consequences. But I always say, look, whatever you do when you knew you didn't have no business doing it, when the consequences come, you just say, well, God, I knew I wasn't supposed to do it. I guess I got to pay the price.
And we've all been there.
Everybody does it. Everybody.
We're human.
Everybody's human. But don't get mad at God when you have consequences for your actions. It's a part. It's a loving God is like a loving.
But
parent.
I think it's still okay to reach, even if we do make choices that are not in line, because we're human. I still think it's okay to reach out to him.
Oh,
right?
oh yeah, no, all the time. Because most of the time, look, you're not. Most people, sometimes you conscientiously say, well, I'm just gonna not make a good choice here.
Like my son dropping his driver's license. Dear God.
But most of the time, it's just we're just human and we just make bad choices sometimes and have to live with them.
And he can help us through it. I think
God
with
gives
our
us
fear.
grace.
He gives us grace. He gives us grace.
That's why we should give other people grace, because how much grace, I know I've had tremendous amount of grace in my life and thankful for it. And God's never turned his back on me. So,
well, that's a great way to end it. Yeah. Not turning your back on you and just being grateful that we do have faith.
Yeah.
And encourage other people to have it as well.
Yes.
Because it's really changed both of our lives, I think.
It has.
Yeah. We're living the best, aren't we?
That's right. Even this podcast, we're stepping out on faith.
Oh God, we didn't know anything, did we?
No, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for another episode. We are excited about our next episode. We have a special guest, Shy Hawkins, and we're going to be talking about claiming your journey. So we're super excited to have her aboard and sharing our talk. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.